So it's been a couple days since I've posted a new video here on the channel. Been off on some holidays with family, also under the weather a bit. So back at it. I wanted to get a string of videos done for this week, but starting off with a recap of some of the news items that have happened since the last time I posted a video. And we're going to start things off with the new era in the Ontario Hockey League as Bryan Crawford was introduced as the next commissioner of the OHL. He replaces David Branch, who, of course, is retiring after leading the league for 45 years. Crawford will assume his new role in August, just in time for the 2024-25 OHL season. And you can just sense the excitement surrounding this change as Crawford's going to bring some fresh ideas and some different perspectives when it comes to the Ontario Hockey League going forward. Of course, with him being commissioner, he represents the ownership group from the Ontario Hockey League, so all 20 ownership teams, and he'll be looking out for their best interests. But at the same time, he said in the press conference last week that he's going to be meeting with all 20 teams. He also wants to reach out to billet families, the players, also local media. So I think he's saying all the right things early on. Hopefully we can get Crawford here on the channel just to do a bit of a one-on-one, get to know him a little bit more on a deeper level. So stay tuned for that. But what I thought was also interesting is the topic of having an OHL team in Toronto was brought up. And Crawford talked a little bit about it. He said that he'd like to see a team in Toronto if that could work, considering how many players come out of the GTA and go on to play in the Ontario Hockey League and eventually the National Hockey League. So for Crawford, he does have a lot of work to do. As we've seen in the past that OHL hockey hasn't really been all that successful in the Ontario or in the city of Toronto. The last team to call Toronto home, that was the St. Michael's Majors, who left in 2007, moving to Mississauga. But at the time, they were playing at the St. Michael's College, and that arena, very small, 1,600 seats, a very intimate setting, not ideal for today's OHL. So if a team were to arrive in Toronto once again, they would need a proper facility. Would they share that facility with a team? You already have the Toronto Marlies playing out of the Coca-Cola Coliseum. You do have the Toronto PWHL team, and you got to figure that for an OHL team, sure, they could share a facility with somebody, but how is it all going to work? And especially when we've seen the numbers of attendance involving GTA teams with Mississauga, Brampton in the past. Oshawa is a bit of an outlier. They're a part of the GTA, but you almost have to figure maybe the history and being a little more further away from the city of Toronto benefits them. But still, it's interesting that they were talking about it. I do believe expansion is on the horizon for the Ontario Hockey League. We will probably grow by 2 teams, is my understanding that could happen. You have one team in the East, one team in the West, or maybe they redo everything and to come up with a whole new system. But I think that's something to keep an eye on. I do plan to do a video soon about expansion communities, cities that maybe could house an Ontario Hockey League team in the future. So stay tuned for that. I'm also still doing the OHL team history videos. The last team we did was the Guelph Storm, so we're going to continue with that coming up over the next few days. But still, great to see Crawford being introduced. He seems very comfortable. Of course, he's been the executive of Golf Canada, and he's seen some growth there with attendance. And he also has professional sports experience, playing 7 seasons with the Toronto Argonauts. So Crawford saying all the right things right now. Of course, he's going to be working side by side with David Branch at the beginning as they do, transition from Branch to Crawford. And then probably the first season is going to be a feeling out process. And then we'll probably start to see some changes being implemented in a year from now, just so Crawford can see where is the league at, where does he envision it going forward, and then we'll probably start to see some changes in about 12 months' time. But still, a very fascinating time as David Branch retiring after 45 years, wanting to spend more time with family and be at the lake. And all the best to him going forward. So it's going to be an interesting transition as we get set for this new era of the Ontario Hockey League. Also, it was announced over the weekend there was a trade between the Saginaw Spirit and the Kingston Frontenacs. Right now, we are in the tail end of the June trade window. The window will close for the month of July, And for half of August, once we get to about training camp, the trade window reopens. So some teams still making some moves, and the Saginaw Spirit, they have traded goaltender Nolan Lalonde to the Kingston Frontenacs for a conditional 15th round pick in 2026. So how the condition works, if Lalonde plays one game for Kingston next season, then the Spirit will receive Guelph's third round pick in 2027 and Kingston's seventh round pick in 2025. Now, this is a great story because Lalonde, he's entering his overage season for the Ontario Hockey League, and he's from the city of Kingston, so he gets to play for his hometown team if it all works out, because he did sign as a free agent with the Columbus Blue Jackets, so he'll obviously head off to the Blue Jackets training camp in the fall, and then we'll have to wait and see, does he get sent down to the American Hockey League, or does he come back to the OHL? I would expect him back in the OHL, and then he could play for the Kingston Frontenacs, and then that's when the conditions will really take place. But still, I think this is a great way for him to end his OHL career, especially after the run he had last year, winning the Memorial Cup with the Saginaw Spirit. And remember, he had some key moments in that series against the Sioux Greyhounds in the second round. Andrew Oak went down with injury, and then Lalonde had to come in relief, and he didn't miss a beat. He had a great run there. And for his stats, he had an .893 save percentage in 12 playoff games. In the regular season, he had a record of 21-8-1. That was in 36 games of work. And I think going into next season, he will complement Mason Vicari in goal. Vicari, I felt like he was overplayed at times with the Kingston Frontenacs. That was an area at the OHL trade deadline back in January I thought the Kingston Frontenacs would look to address, but they didn't add a goaltender. But now they've decided is the time to bring in Lalonde, an overage goaltender. He can work with Vicari, and I think this is a very interesting goaltending tandem. Two capable goaltenders in an East Division, which you kind of figure maybe Oshawa or Brantford might have the edge next season. But if you can get some good goaltending, maybe the Frontenacs look to add a few more pieces. And, Kingston Frontenacs, they could be a team challenging in that East Division. Time will tell. But this is also a situation where the Saginaw Spirit needed to move out an overager. They have 10 OA candidates going into next season. Remember, Saginaw doing all the pickups at the OHL trade deadline, getting the veteran players to make that run from the Memorial Cup, and Lalonde being able to move so they can get some assets back because you can only have 3 players in the lineup per game who are overagers. You can have more than that on your roster at the start of the season, but then by the OHL trade deadline, you do have to get that number down to 3. And with Kingston picking up Lalonde, now they have 5 overage candidates going into next season. So still some questions that need to be answered with Kingston. And right now it seems like goaltending is going to be their focus going into next year. And the final news item I want to talk about is Tyler Challenger. He is signed with the Erie Otters. Challenger was selected 10th overall by the Erie Otters in the first round of the 2024 OHL Priority Selection. And for Challenger, he signs his OHL scholarship and development agreement and becomes the first member of the 2024 draft class for Erie to commit starting for next season. So exciting times for there. And I believe that Erie is going to be a team that is going to challenge for top spot in the Western Conference. It's going to be quite the battle, I feel, between Erie and London in that Midwest division. They got a lot of great young talent. And I think Challenger, they'll probably get bottom 6 minutes next season, but with Stan Butler as a head coach, he's going to get some great experience there. He's going to fit in nicely. And I do think this Erie Otters team is setting up quite nicely for 24-25. Also to note, that means 9 out of the 10 first-round picks of the OHL draft have now signed with their respective teams. The only player not to sign is Caleb Malhotra, who was selected 8th overall by the Kingston Frontenacs. And at this point, he did sign a commitment with the Chilliwack Chiefs of the BCHL. So it seems really unlikely that we'll see Malhotra signing with Kingston. Although anything is possible at this point. We hear commitments of players going to other teams like Fitzgerald, who signed with the Green Bay Gamblers, but ended up coming to the Peterborough Petes. So anything is still possible on Malhotra, but at this point, it seems unlikely that he does come to the OHL. But still, congratulations to Tyler Challenger signing with Erie. So it's a bit of a quick news video today. I just wanted to get this up there over some news items that happened while I was away. And, that's how I see it from the booth. Put your comments down below. Thank you very much for all your support. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again soon.